Welcome to the third hour of American Agenda. I'm Bob Sellers.
And I'm Heather Childers. We are joined by our family of co-hosts, the host of the Joe Pags Show, Joe Pags, host of the Stacy on the Right, Stacy Washington, and former Ohio Congressman Bob McEwen. Welcome to all of you. Thank you for joining us.
All right, House Democrats are rushing to pass H.R. 1280, otherwise known as the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. The bill focuses on pushing a radical reform, removing a lot of current safety protocols for police officers, what a lot of people say is defunding the police. Earlier, Congresswoman Kat Cammack, who had this to say when arguing against the bill on the House floor.
Now, as a member of the first responder family, I can say definitively on behalf of our officers that there is absolutely nothing that a good cop hates more than a bad cop. And as the wife of a first responder, this issue could not be more personal to me. My husband serves our local community as a firefighter and a SWAT medic for our local sheriff's department. And next to me here today, you see one of his SWAT vests. This is the same vest that he wore for 14 hours while on a massive manhunt for a man who had just been released from prison who promptly raped and killed his girlfriend. It is the same vest that he wore while responding to a man who had barricaded himself with weapons, threatening to kill his own children. These are just some of the scenes that this vest and my husband has seen, like so many of our LEOs. But the real threat here is not the dangerous situations that my husband has seen in protecting his community. It is the fact that this bill, and by extension you, Mr. Speaker, want to take this vest off my husband's back. Because yes, what this bill does is take this kind of equipment off the backs of our men and women in uniform.
Very passionate speech there, Stacy. I think that connected to a lot of people. Now, they called this the George Floyd bill. Everybody knows what happened there was wrong, okay? Separate that out from what's actually in the bill, and that's what she's hitting on.
So, Bob, I love that you started off with that. There's no one in America who thinks what happened to George Floyd was a good thing, or that come on, we all universally decried that. Kat Cammack has been on my program before. She is an outstanding example of what the future of the Republican Party looks like. And I couldn't agree with her more on the points about taking away safety equipment from law enforcement officers is an idiotic move. My dad spent 2 careers in law enforcement, one on active duty in the Army and then one in the federal government afterwards. And I went to bed at night knowing that he had firearms in the house. I would, every night at dinner, it was my mom calling out from the kitchen. He'd come in the door, put his service revolver, you know, it was a Sig Sauer actually, on the dining room table. And my mom would say, get that off my nice dining room table and get ready for dinner. This is the way that I grew up. And so what Kat Cammack is sharing there is the truth for millions of families out there who are affiliated with law enforcement. So the idea here is law enforcement should be reformed at the local level. And praise be to God, that's already beginning. They even talk about it online, and everywhere that you see the summations of this bill, they talk about different reforms that have been taken at local levels across the country. That's where this belongs. Any reform at the federal level by Democrats is virtue signaling, because they only like the cops when they're there to protect them from so-called rioters like on the 6th. Yeah. And the other time, you can't find them saying a good thing about law enforcement.
Yeah. Joe Pags, your thoughts here.
Well, I couldn't agree more. I mean, this is virtue signaling. They're not really looking to defund anybody. They're looking to get more votes for Democrats. You can look at Minneapolis specifically. They defunded by about $1 million. Now they've added a bunch of money back in. And oh, by the way, the city council that hates the police and wants to defund the police and was okay with 300 businesses being burned down because of George Floyd riots, they then called the police chief in and said, hey, why is crime on the rise? Why are rapes on the rise? Why is carjacking on the rise? Because you can't take away the good guys who are protecting our communities. This is a bill that isn't going to do anything other than re-embolden people who hate police. Let's be real about the numbers. 99% of all police are good. There's a bad apple here and there. You don't denigrate the entire job because of it. And they are working 8, 10, 12, 14-hour shifts trying to keep us safe. I don't understand how anybody can think this is anything other than we need more of your votes, and we know a segment of the population hates the police. Let's go and get them with some legislation. That's really all this is.
Yeah. You know, Bob, what I'm wondering is, I thought that the Democrats had learned the lesson that it didn't work saying defund the police. Yet you have this approach here, and that's not the entire bill, but it sure is the sense, the spirit of the bill.
Yes, and they're desperate. As you know, the Minneapolis situation, they haven't had a Republican governor there in nearly a Republican mayor there in nearly 100 years. And so there was need for reform, and yet they think that the reform is to remove the standard of justice. You know, we, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice. That's what the neighborhoods need. That's what you need for jobs and opportunity and safety. And for them to go right at the very heart and remove the sense of justice by removing the law enforcement is really a very nasty thing to do to the inner city.
Yeah. Heather, your take on this?
Well, what it would do basically is impose hundreds of thousands of dollars in terms of cost for these local police departments. And then also, I question the timing of all of these bills that we've been discussing throughout the day that are being pushed by the Democrats through so quickly so that people don't even have a chance to read and find out what is actually in them. At the same time that you're padding the special interest pockets of some of your, the people that maybe pay for your campaigns, that type of thing is happening, and then you're opening up the borders. It seems like people's priorities are way out of whack in Washington.
Yeah, and Bob, that is a tactic that they use in Congress, right? Aren't the Democrats right now trying to jam these through? They know they have the votes to get them through, at least in the House. They don't want the daylight to shine on them.
Both of you are so insightful. That's absolutely correct. The last majority leader of the Senate to become president of the United States said when he won a landslide in 1964, in his very first cabinet meeting, he said to them, mandates don't last. What we will do, we must do quickly. And 1965 was just the most horrendous year in American history. And by 1966, Lyndon Johnson had lost 42 seats. Bill Clinton, 2 years into his term, lost control of the Congress. Barack Obama, 2 years into his term, lost control of the Congress. And so you have Pelosi and Schumer, who have both been there for approaching half a century, over 40 years. They know that if they want to do damage, they have to do it immediately before people figure out what they're up to and can stop it. And so you're 100% correct.
All right. Very interesting conversation. There's more to come as well, folks. Stand by, panel. Where is Joe Biden, by the way? The current president signing off on a lot of executive orders, but not answering many of our questions. I mean, tell me when he had a press conference. Where is the State of the Union? We know the first one's not called State of the Union, but where's that speech? Where's the transparency that this president promised? More on American Agenda after this.